I want you to hit me as hard as you can.
I'm Dylan Bowden for the Joe Blow Network, and this is From Page to Screen. For this installment, we'll be looking back at the movie that invented the modern day superhero genre, with Marvel's Merry Mutants, 2000's X-Men. Created in 1963 by writer Stan Lee and artist Jack Kirby, the X-Men first appeared in X-Men Issue 1 as a group of students learning to control their mutant powers at the Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters. Each possessing a unique superhuman ability, they are shunned and feared by society, but band together when danger calls, forming the superhero team known as the X-Men. Founded by telepath Professor X, the initial team consisted of Cyclops, Marvel Girl, Iceman, Angel, and the Beast. Originating in the heart of the turbulent 1960s, right amongst the civil rights movement, the character's oppression became a metaphor for the plight of the African American people in modern-day America, with Professor X believing humans and mutants could coexist, representing the pacifist views of Martin Luther King, and supervillain Magneto believing mutants should dominate over the inferior human race by any means necessary, just like Malcolm X. In 1975, the group was reinvented to integrate a more international team of mutants, adding African Storm, Russian Colossus, German Nightcrawler, Scotsman Banshee, and Canadian Wolverine to the roster. The X-Men appeared on the small screen from as early as 1966, guest starring in the Marvel superheroes, and in 1982 in Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, before appearing in their own failed pilot in 1987 named Pride of the X-Men. And finally, firmly establishing themselves in mainstream media with the highly acclaimed X-Men the Animated Series in 1992. A movie adaptation had been in development from as early as 1984, and several high-profile directors had been attached, including James Cameron, Robert Rodriguez, and Tim Burton, before Bryan Singer was hired for the job. As an openly gay director, the themes of prejudice resonated with Singer, and his experience working with an ensemble of actors in his critically acclaimed movie The Usual Suspects made him an ideal choice for dealing with such a large roster of characters. Using real-world events to ground the movie in reality, something that has been incorporated into future installments, Singer used the Holocaust as the perfect way to convey what the mutant race were potentially going to face, making the stakes very real for the characters. A massive change from the source material was the characters' traditional costumes, feeling that the original blue and yellow, and eventually individual looks, wouldn't be believable on screen. Instead, the filmmakers opted to put them in matching black leather uniforms, drawing a lot of initial fan criticism.
You actually go outside in these things? What would you prefer? Yellow spandex?
Weary of investing too much in an unproven genre, 20th Century Fox only assigned the film a budget of $75 million. Quite low for a big summer tentpole release. This left Singer having to whittle down the huge roster of X-Men characters to a small core team. However, many changes were made to the characters when adapting them to screen. First introduced in X-Men Issue 1, Professor Charles Xavier, aka Professor X, is a powerful mutant telepath that seeks to bring coexistence between humans and mutants. Developing a device known as Cerebro to amplify his brainwaves and locate new and helpless mutants, he sought to teach fellow mutants to control their powers. Patrick Stewart was the first and only choice for the role, and his comic book character personified as Charles Xavier, sporting a pitch-perfect look and matching electric wheelchair. Displaying a wide range of his telepathic powers, he has founded the X-Men and his School for Gifted Youngsters to protect society, utilizing Cerebro to expand his psychic reach and discover new mutants all over the planet, as well as standing against his old friend Magneto while still showing a great admiration for him.
A long time ago.
Leading the X-Men's field team is Cyclops. First appearing in X-Men Issue 1, Scott Summers, aka Cyclops, is the leader of the X-Men, and possesses the ability to project powerful optic blasts from his eyes. He must wear ruby quartz glasses at all times to contain the beam, or otherwise constantly keep his eyes shut. Recruited by Charles Xavier as his first student, and being given a visor that enabled him to control and direct his blast. In the movie, Cyclops maintains his optic blasts, controlled by his iconic visor, and is field leader for the X-Men, but is given very little to do. Played as stoic and dull, he shows very little leadership, relegated to standing around and looking intimidating.
How could you tell?
Also appearing in X-Men Issue 1, Jean Grey, aka Marvel Girl, possesses telekinetic powers, allowing her to move objects with the power of her mind. her parents seek out Professor Xavier, who takes her in as one of the X-Men, seeing potential in her. Here she meets Scott Summers, and eventually falls in love and marries him. When Wolverine joins the team though, she has torn feelings for him, causing a love triangle. In the movie, Jean Grey is already married to Cyclops, and possesses telekinetic abilities, as well as budding telepathic abilities that she is still learning to control. She is also the team's physician and public advocate in the Senate for mutants, incorporating aspects of Henry McCoy's Beast in the comics. When Wolverine joins the team, an attraction builds between the two, causing conflict between Wolverine and Cyclops. First introduced briefly in The Incredible Hulk issue 180, and making his first full appearance in issue 181, Wolverine was a mysterious loner suffering amnesia and searching the Canadian mountains in search of answers to his past. Possessing heightened senses of smell and hearing, as well as the ability to heal from nearly all wounds, he is constantly at battle with his animalistic side. His origin remained a mystery for many decades, which was part of his appeal. One constant is his recruitment into a top-secret government program that laced his skeleton with a near-indestructible metal named adamantium, giving him razor-sharp claws protruding from his hands. Portrayed as a short, gruff, cigar-chomping Canadian, Scottish actor Doug Ray Scott was cast in the role, but due to scheduling conflicts while filming Mission Impossible 2, he had to withdraw from the role. Already 3 weeks into filming, unknown 6'2" Australian actor Hugh Jackman was cast at the last minute, and the rest is history, bringing the perfect blend of ferocity and humour to the role. In the movie, Wolverine is portrayed as a lost loner travelling the Canadian wilderness in search of a mysterious past that haunts him, while retaining his heightened senses, healing factor, adamantium, and iconic claws in a star-making role. First appearing in Giant Size X-Men issue 1, Aurora Munro, aka Storm, has the immense power to manipulate the elements, including rain, hail, and lightning, as well as using her control over the winds to levitate and fly. Growing up alone on the streets of Kenya, she turned to pickpocketing to survive, where she came across Professor X. Coming to maturity and developing her powers, she was praised as a godlike figure until being recruited for the X-Men. In the movie, Halle Berry adopts the African accent, but dropped it for subsequent sequels, and her powers are played down, mostly just levitating, rather than full flying. First appearing in Avengers Annual 10, Rogue is a sassy Southern belle who has the ability to absorb other mutants' powers just by touching them. Discovering her powers at a young age after putting her boyfriend in a coma, she runs away from home and while on the streets is found and raised by a disguised Mystique who manipulates her into using her powers for evil. Forced to steal the powers of Miss Marvel, she gets into a battle with the superhero, and holds on too long, permanently gaining her superhuman strength and ability to fly, but also gaining her memories as well. Struggling with her new abilities, she turns to the X-Men, becoming one of the most powerful of the team, and wears a full bodysuit and gloves to prevent coming in contact with others. In the movie, she is portrayed as a teenager named Marie, who, like her comic book counterpart, discovers her powers when sharing her first kiss. Running away from home, she calls herself Rogue, and while hitchhiking, stumbles across Wolverine, building a close bond, combining elements of other comic book characters, Jubilee and Kitty Pryde. There is no mention of her southern heritage or her superhuman powers, however, she does adopt a green hood similar to the colour of her uniform from the comics, and similar white streak in her hair by the end of the film. Because the rights to the Miss Marvel character were owned by Marvel Studios, this cinematic Rogue never developed her superhuman powers. Also appearing in X-Men issue 1, Eric Lenshier, aka Magneto, possesses the ability to manipulate anything made of metal, and uses electromagnetic fields to take flight, making him one of the most powerful mutants of all time, and the X-Men's greatest foe. The movie follows his origin quite closely, a Holocaust survivor and old friend of Charles Xavier, before their opposing ideologies turn them against each other. Showcasing all his mutant abilities here, he leads his own opposing group, the Brotherhood, which is based on the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, first appearing in 1963 in X-Men issue 4. Retaining his look from the comics, he wears a simple purple cape and costume, and his helmet is justified as a way to block Xavier's mind-reading abilities. Openly gay actor Ian McKellen found a strong connection with the oppressed character, making him one of the strongest parts of the X-Men movie franchise. The movie also has a few Easter eggs scattered throughout. Stan Lee makes his first cinematic cameo as a surprise hot dog vendor. One of the many writers over the years of the movie's development was future Avengers director Joss Whedon. The writer that ended up receiving sole screenplay credit was David Hayter, who makes a cameo towards the end of the movie as a police officer. Hayter is most commonly known as the voice actor of Solid Snake in the Metal Gear video game series. The truck driver that drops Rogue off is played by voice actor George Boozer,
This is Laughlin City.
Who voiced the character Beast in X-Men the Animated Series? Some of the student extras seen displaying their powers are future X-Men members, including Kitty Pryde, Pyro, and Jubilee. Initially dismissed by fans for its deviation from the source material, lack of action, and a generic world domination plot, it was the way the adaptation stayed true to the spirit and central themes of the comics, as well as grounding it in a real-world approach that made X-Men such a hit, earning $296 million from its tiny budget of only $75 million, and currently holding a rating of 81% on Rotten Tomatoes. It was this approach that blasted away the barrier between comic book fans and mainstream audiences, and opening the floodgates for big-budget, critically respected adaptations that continue to this day. Was there anything we missed, or any characters you'd like to learn more about? Leave your comments below. This has been Dylan Bowden for JoBlo.com, and we'll see you next time.